present the final case.
Okay.
Thank you. This case is file 0508-20-0036.1 TDG 200001. The applicant is Paul Robert Bade. The purpose of the application is a Tidelands grant application on a former tributary of Crookhorn Creek, Lot 22, Block 5309, Ocean City, Cape May County. The total area of the applicant's parcel is 5,263 square feet. The area, formerly flowed area claimed by the state is 1,940 square feet. The claim source is a 1940 pan photography. On Tidelands map number 140-2004, adopted May 27th, 1982. The purchase date was November 14th, 2019, where the property was transferred for $1 from Paul Bade, trustee of Paul Bade Family Trust, to Paul Bade. This application was submitted as a grant application. This application would qualify for a good faith discount based on the ownership history being in the family prior to the adoption date of the map. This application is at a stage where an appraisal will be ordered as the next step in the process to be submitted for review to determine the appropriate value for staff to be able to make a recommendation to the council. However, the applicant, Mr. Paul Bade, is arguing that his property should be covered by the grant to Ocean City Homes, Inc., dated January 31st, 1978, found in Liber 06 at page 235, and/or that there should not be a claim on his property. It is the Bureau's opinion that the Ocean City Homes grant did not convey the state's Tidelands claim on this property, and this is based off an interpretation of the grant language and how the council has previously interpreted this grant. Mr. Bade has been advised of the Bureau's opinion, and he has requested to make his argument directly to the council members at today's meeting to support his conclusion that his property is covered by the Ocean City Homes grant. Mr. Bade has submitted many pieces of information to the Bureau, and the Bureau has provided that information to the council members in advance of this meeting. And while the Bureau has reviewed this information, due to the volume of material submitted and Mr. Bade's request that he be given the opportunity to present this information directly to the council, Mr. Bade is going to be given that opportunity to make his case before the council. So with that, I believe Mr. Bade, he was here earlier. I believe he is in on this meeting, and he, unless the council has any other questions at this point, Mr. Bade can present his materials.
Thank you.
Mr. Bade?
Yes,
No,
Madam Chairman, before we proceed, I have a question for our council. Nick, I see that agent information is John Scott Abbott, which I normally recuse myself on his cases, but in this case, this is being presented by the owner, and I specifically am familiar with information with regards to this case because he references a Martin Weissman who I have knowledge of and would be able to explain to council. Am I allowed to do that? I do not know this gentleman. I have no interest in the case other than to make sure that the council gets verification of information that he's making, statements that he's making.
I feel ideally you would want to get an opinion from the ethics officer. It's up to you and your comfort level, whether you think that you should recuse yourself. Yeah. Okay.
Well, in this particular case, since the material is not being presented by Mr. Abbott, who I normally recuse myself with his cases, this is the applicant who's speaking on his behalf, and I feel comfortable that I could make comments concerning his application. Am I all right with that, Madam Chairman?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
All right, thank you.
Great. So this is Paul Bade. Mary Pat, can you
present my slides as I talk to him?
Yes, we have a staff member, Mr. Bade, who has all the materials.
I wasn't sure how this was going to happen, but
We have your slides and we have the exhibit. So you let us know what you want us to pull up the slide presentation.
yeah, the slides. I don't think we will need to go through the exhibits. They were more background in case anyone on the TRC would actually need to additional context.
Right. I know that they were much of the ground was covered in the slides. I guess it was additional background or, as an independent exhibit. But go.
Right. Right.
Okay.
If you need context, sometimes you want to read the whole document. So
We're ready to present
Okay.
all the materials that you sent us.
thank you.
Can everybody see everything?
No,
I
I
haven't seen anything on my
You
screen.
don't see the slide yet? Okay, hold on. So I started. Hold on. Let me see. Hold on.
While you're
Sorry.
doing that, I just want to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity to speak about my request for a confirmatory grant.
You're welcome.
Can you see now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Paul Bade, and I'm going to talk to you about my request for a confirmatory grant. So slide 2. I'm the owner of the house and lot located at 109 Brigantine Drive in Ocean City, and my lot contains approximately 5,263 square feet, as Randy has already told you. Slide 3. State of New Jersey is claiming ownership of approximately 1,940 square feet, or 36.9% of my property, based on a riparian survey, which I had done by Martinelli surveyors in November of last year. Slide 3 or 4. I assert that the state has no claim to any part of my property because I believe the state conveyed all of its rights, title, and interest in and to my lot and many other lots within Ocean City Homes by the grant from NJDEP, Division of Marine Services, to Ocean City Homes, Incorporated, dated January 31st, 1978. The heart of my claim is that the state of New Jersey intended to grant to Ocean City Homes all of the lands then and now formerly flowed, which were contained within the boundaries of the Ocean City Homes development. Think about it. It would have made no sense for the principals of Ocean City Homes to have bargained with the state for conveyance of anything less than all such land claimed by the state. Next slide. So this is an excerpt from the 1978 grant, which supports my assertion that the state intended to convey all that tract of land, now informally flowed by tidewaters, within the Ocean City Homes development. You can see the excerpt right here says all that tract of land now informally flowed. Next slide. As we look to the map in the 1978 grant, again consider that it would have made no sense for the principals of Ocean City Homes to have bargained with the state for conveyance of anything less than all current or formerly tidally flowed land claimed by the state. This map shows Ocean City Homes development on the right. I'll show you on the next slide that there are tributaries of Beach Creek missing from this map, as well as additional tributaries drawn on this map that the state isn't claiming. As per the grant, which is grant language, slide 29, we can go to that later if we need to, it was a responsibility of the state to fix the boundaries of the lands now or formerly flowed by tidewater. Accordingly, the map was prepared by the state of New Jersey. You might also take note that the state did not include a metes and bounds description of these tributaries or any more accurate description of these tributaries within the grant. This is just a cartoon map. And I will show you later in my presentation that the tributaries are not even drawn to scale. Yet this is the sole piece of evidence the state is using to claim that the state had intended to only convey some of the land claimed by the state within the Ocean City Homes development. I don't see any rational reason that the state would have wanted to withhold some claims from this grant. Finally, please note that all these tributaries were no longer flowing water by the time the grant was executed and delivered to Ocean City Homes. Next slide. So when we compare the grant map to the state's current claims, we see there are significant differences. So shown in red is a depiction of the tributaries as per the grant map, which was our prior slide. I just want to make sure everybody understands that the red was our prior slide. It aligns to our prior slide. The blue shows the current claims of the state, and the green is the overlap between them, which shows you there's not much overlap because there's very little green. The state is now asking for compensation for tributaries pointed to by number 1 and number 2. The state hasn't said anything about number 3, which are tributaries that they got paid for but no longer claim. But my main point is that as you look at this map, consider whether it would make any sense for Ocean City Homes to have bargained for conveyance of anything other than all the land claimed by the state within the Ocean City Homes development. And consider that Ocean City Homes had to rely on the state to identify the state's claims. Next slide, please. Do I have any questions? If you have questions, feel free to speak up.
Yes, I have a question. You said that these streams were no longer flowed. Was that because of the railroad line that went adjacent to the property?
No, by 78, most of Ocean City Homes, if not all of it, was built out. My parents bought their house in 73, and they were the second owners. The house was originally built in sold, and somebody moved in 1969.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bade, you broke up. You said the house was originally built when?
The house was originally built, and the first owner took possession in 1969.
In your property.
So on our property, and then my parents bought it from the lady who was the original owner, and they bought it in 1973. So by the time the grant was issued in 78, my parents had owned the house for 5 years, roughly 4.5, 5 years.
Thank you. You broke up, so I was just trying to make sure I got.
Yeah, that's fine. And any questions, feel free to inject at any point in time. There's a lot of information here. And if I'm going too fast, slow me down because I'm a little excited and I'm kind of, I tend to talk fast when I'm,
Well, you're doing a good job in the presentation. Why don't you proceed?
Okay. So it was natural for the principals of Ocean City Homes to assume that the state would not be making any additional claims within the Ocean City Homes development because not only had the land been filled by the time of the grant, but homes had been built on the lots that contained the filled-in land. Right. Again, my house was completely built, and we had been in it for a few years by that time. Ocean City and the state had been discussing the purchase of these tie lands since the mid-1960s. And I have a grant application which shows you that. And that's when Ocean City Homes began developing the land. The state had been issued a dredging permit in 67, which enabled the Ocean City Homes to obtain the fill for the land. And they had the state had raised no objection to any construction at that time. Ocean City had filled in this land, and the state had not stood in the way of residential development on the land. So again, the conclusion is it was reasonable and natural for the principals of Ocean City Homes to believe that the 1978 grant, for which Ocean City Homes paid $26,000 and also conveyed 64 acres that it owned, only of which 18 were tidelands, they conveyed those all to the state so that the state would convey away all its remaining interest in the Ocean City Homes development. If we go to any questions on that? We go to the next slide, which is slide 9. So I've spent a lot of time, as you can tell, trying to gather all information and put all the pieces together to understand what happened. So I actually did a lot of research and found out that Mr. Weissman, who was vice president of Ocean City Homes in the 60s and 70s, was still alive. And I found him out in LA, and I called him up, cold call, on February 15th of 2021. Most of the correspondence concerning the grant was between the state and Mr. Weissman. When I went through the Oprah request that I got from the state, I counted it, and it was about 37 letters. So I asked him if he remembered it, and he obviously did. He remembered the negotiation of the grant, and he told me that the intent of the state and the intent of Ocean City Homes at that time was for a conveyance of all the tidelands claimed within the Ocean City Homes development. In fact, I mailed him my presentation last week after I sent it to Randy. So I sent it supposedly overnight, but the post office is pretty screwed up right now. So he didn't get it until earlier this week. And he called me up. And so we had a discussion, and I said, you know, the main thing that I'm trying to convey to the Tidelands Council is what the intent of this grant was, right? And we had talked about it prior when I made this earlier phone call, but I said, if you could just, you know, tell me in your own words what you believe the intent was and just email it to me, I'd appreciate it. So he said he didn't really want to get involved too much, but he said, you know, I really understand. I want to help you out, so I will do that. And so all the council, I believe, has a copy of that email.
Yes, we do.
And I can read it to you if you like.
I don't think that's necessary, Mr. Bade. We all have it.
Okay. So it basically says that the intent, you know, as he believes from Ocean Cities, was to get the entire grant for everything claimed within the Ocean City Homes development. And he believes the state knew what they were granting. The Tidelands Council there knew when they voted on it, they were granting everything. And so if we go to the next slide, right, to give you the proper legal perspective for all this, right?
Well, before we go into that, this is Councilman Grabus. So you provided us with Mr. Weissman's rendition of what he thought happened back then.
Correct.
You have specific letters from the state of New Jersey that say that their intention is to clear all claims from the Ocean City Homes development. Do you have a letter that says that?
So I looked through the Oprah file that I got. I do not see a statement to that effect. I think it was pretty well understood. And if you look at the grant language says convey all lands now or formerly flowed, right? It says all tract of lands. Only dispute that I see Mr. Bierce raise is the map. And
well, it actually says lands now are formerly flowed by tidewater hereinafter described. You have to read the entire document. And so then you have to go to where it says where the hereinafter described is. My point is you're claiming that based upon Mr. Weissman, who's not here and is recollecting something from near on 40 some odd years ago, that it was his recollection that's what he was looking for. I'm looking for something that we can base our opinion on from the state of New Jersey that affirmatively says something different than what I'm seeing in the grant. That's what
so
I'm
I
asking.
see in the grant, it says convey unto Ocean City Homes. If we go back to slide 5, right? Convey unto said Ocean City Homes, a corporation, signs forever all that tract of land now or formerly flowed by tidewaters, situate in the city of Ocean City in Cape May County and state of New Jersey, fronting and abutting the lands acquired by the grantee herein by 2 deeds dated and recorded. And those 2 deeds point to the Ocean City Homes development.
I understand that, but what you just, and from a deed document standpoint, What you've just pointed out is what we would call the preamble to a description. Okay, that description continues on further down the page and says, as I said, hereinafter described. So the description goes on after that point. It doesn't end. This is not the description. What you're looking at on the screen right now is not the description of what was conveyed in this grant. There is additional language that.
So let's look at it. Let's pull up Exhibit 2, if we can.
Councilman Gravis, while we're pulling up that other exhibit, the statements that were made by Mr. Weissman, who I know, actually, I used to call him Marty because he was my customer. I was a president of a small community bank in Ocean City that did financing for this project. And I can tell you that Mr. Weissman was a very particular about documents he received. He was very cautious when he reviewed any loan documents. He was a tough negotiator. And if he said that he felt that they conveyed title to those other properties that are now being claimed, I believe his statements because he was a very intelligent businessman. He always surrounded himself with the best in as far as attorneys and engineers. He used John Walker as his engineer. And so I feel confident that whatever statements Mr. Weissman made were correct.
And I appreciate the fact that you had faith in Mr. Weissman's rendition of what occurred. However, if he had been as cautious as you said, he would have made sure that this document, this grant, specifically referenced that all of the claims of the state of New Jersey were being extinguished. And this grant does not say that. And Mr. Bade has not presented a letter from the state that says that. So I have an open mind, but I'm trying to find concrete information that we could base our decision upon. We've already recognized the fact that it would be eligible for a 75% discount. So there's already consideration being given. What's happening here is he's asking for a complete abolishment of any sort of consideration, and that would create a precedent that we have to be very careful in the way that we go about that. We have to make sure that we have sufficient evidence presented to us that we can set that precedent, because it's not only going to affect his property, but it's going to affect every single property in Ocean City Homes development. It would effectively wipe out the claims of the state of New Jersey to the entire development. So it's not just his home we're talking about here.
I understand that. But also, I'm looking at the documents and I'm seeing where the state had laid forth those areas that they felt that they were claiming. They gave Mr. Weissman and his company, this is what we claim. And that's what he paid for. He gave them additional ground. He also received the right to fill this ground from the state of New Jersey. He was able to dredge and fill. So I see lots of things that the state has done to support this argument that this was a grant that was given for the total property, because those were the property showed what was being claimed at that time. So here we are. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But we were going to go over the grant document itself, and I think we're going to address some of the issues that both Councilmember DiBardino and Councilmember Gravis are raising at this point. So I think we should go. This is the exhibit drawing that Mr. Bade requested we pull up. So this is a copy of the grant document from the county deed records, and I can attest that this is the same as the copy that are in the LIBOR records.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So I believe we were talking about the preamble to the description. So if we can go down, Christina. So whereas, go down further.
Now that would be it right there on the whereas.
Okay, go back up then to the whereas.
So if you read the whereas, it says a majority of the members of the council, okay, approve a grant for lands now or formerly flowed by Tidewater hereinafter described. And so that's now when you have to go further down past that to get to the area where it was hereinafter described.
Go back up to the top of that page, Christina. Okay, so now therefore, put now therefore at the top, but let's see it all. And
So-
this is where it says, all that tract of land now or formerly flowed by tidewaters. So I'm sorry, Mr. Gravis, I was just, if you wanted to continue there.
Right. And it says abutting the lands acquired by the grantee. So that could be anywhere. It's abutting, and that's shown on the map. If you go down a little bit further, now we get to the actual described grant. It says the tracts of land intended to be granted herein are shown within the dashed lines on the map attached here to and made a part hereof, and it refers to the map. Now, the problem I do have with the map is that there are no dashed lines on the map anywhere. And I think that's a mistake by by whoever prepared the map. I do note that the map by reference, there's a reference date that says that it is prepared in accordance with a plan entitled Map of Lands Owned by Ocean City Homes, showing lands under Tidewater, dated 1966, approximate edge of berm and filled area added in 1972, and revised again in 72 and again in 77. That map undoubtedly was prepared by Ocean City Homes, not by the state of New Jersey, because it preceded this grant in 1978. And certainly the state would not have gone back and done this work in 66 and 72 and 72 and 77. It's not really the way the state operates. So this is a map that was originally created undoubtedly by Ocean City Homes, and that was provided to the state, and then it was up to the state to verify the information that was here. However, what is very clearly stated in the deed is the tract of lands intended to be granted herein are shown within the dashed lines on the map attached here too. The problem we have is we don't have any dashed lines. What we do have immediately after that, it says total area involved measures 1.14 acres, more or less. So that at 1.14 acres had to be calculated by someone. That 1.14 acres undoubtedly coincides with the streams that are shown on the map. They don't show the stream that runs through Mr. Bade's property. That doesn't appear on the map. That would have increased the total amount of area to much more than that. So the grant can only convey 1.14 acres, which are delineated on the map. That's the intent of the grant.
So can I speak for a second, please?
Absolutely.
So the map was prepared by the state of New Jersey, and it actually says that on the map. It says was prepared in accordance with blah, 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 and it says Department of Environmental Protection's wetlands map number. There's also other evidence.
I did not disagree that this map was prepared by the state. If you look at the note where it says reference data, you'll see that the map was prepared from prior maps. And those
Right. If you, Christine, if you scroll down to go to the map, and so we can show where we're talking about there. So right there on the lower right is referring to the legend block that's referring that it's
There you go.
mapped. Go to the right side. There and that says this is the map that they're referring to, prepared by the state with the 1978 date. However, if you go to the left, what Councilmember Gravis is referring to, this is the reference data that this map was prepared in accordance with the plan entitled Map of Lands Owned by Ocean City Homes, Inc., showing lands under tidewater, giving the additional information, originally dated 1966, then revised multiple times. And in fact, I note that it was prepared by John Walker, who is the surveyor that I believe Mr. DiBardino referenced that Mr. Weissman would use and as his reliable source for the mapping. So basically the map that was prepared was based on a map that was provided by the applicant at that time.
I disagree with that. The map says that it was prepared by the Department of Environmental Protection. If you look at, there's other deeds that the state wrote, and I could pull them up or email them to you. I didn't send them out, but because all the land, a lot of the properties had already been deeded out, the state insisted that they write these deeds to flow the grant down to the other properties. And when it refers to it, it refers to the map prepared by the state. Furthermore, Mr. Weissman explained to me the process. And if we want to turn to my slide, again, I can walk you through the slides for the process. But the process for preparing the maps is as described by Martin Weissman. Let's see. We go down to slide 19, I believe. He said to me, this is the way it works. The grantee was only had to provide a perimeter survey of the area. So the grantee would go out and survey the boundaries, outer boundaries of their thing, provide that to the state. The state would then take an IR camera, fly it overhead, right? And the IR camera allowed them to distinguish between the area that was marshland from the area that was water, right? And they used that to then produce the riparian map. And if you go back to the files, that the Oprah file that the state had, there was an IR photo of the land where my house was that showed the stream on it. So the timeline that I believe, if we want to get to that, and we can go out of order on these slides if you want, but I think it's the due diligence slide where basically, if you go to slide 15, did the state perform due diligence? Right? In 62, there was an aerial photo that showed the portion of the tributary on my land to be non-tidal and unfilled. And that was due to the railroad being built. And we can talk about that later if we want. But in 67, the grant application from Ocean City Homes was formally accepted. I think it only is common sense that the state's not going to fly an IR camera until after they accept the grant application. So I believe that that week between then and when they issued the dredging permit was what they used to fly the IR camera that actually took a picture of the lands, including my property, right? If you then go to 67, they got the dredging permit a week later on May 10th. And then again, the first homeowner bought our property back in 69, in June of 69. So the state had access to the prior lands to perform their claims mapping, right? So, and we know that they looked at it and they prepared the map. That's what Weissman said. He said the way it worked is I did a survey of the boundaries. I sent that to the state. The state then flew a camera. The state used that to prepare the map. So it may have been that they based it on a map that was of their development, but I don't believe that Ocean City Homes, how would they draw the riparian tributaries? They wouldn't. They didn't have the information. It was a state that flew the camera.
But I think Mr. Weissman is incorrect in his assumption or recollection. I'm unaware that the state had the time or the resources for every application that came in to fly a photo flight to do an infrared imagery. I believe he's probably maybe confusing some of the later stuff that took place in the overall mapping project that the state eventually did, where they would look for mapping sources, and that they did look at certain aerial flights. But this was something that was done for the whole mapping process when the state was mapping their claims, and admittedly that the claims mapping wasn't completed and adopted for this particular site until after your family owned this property, and also after this particular grant was delivered. And that's the reason why your property would be eligible for the good faith discount. So the reference to that aerial photo, it wasn't done by the state for every at the time for every application that came in that would have been part of
the for my property. If you ask for the Oprah file for our property, it was in there. It was a picture of just our area, and it was an IR camera picture.
But is that IR camera picture dated? Do we know when it was flown?
I don't believe it says so, but it says Beach Creek on it. If you go to, and maybe I should have sent you the entire Oprah file. But
so,
you
Mr. Bay, can I just ask you a question? First of all, Mr. Weissman, to your knowledge, did he ever work for the NJDEP or at this time?
No, he communicated with the NJDEP.
I just wanted to answer
37 letters.
But he didn't work for them. So as far as the internal operations of the DEP at this time, it's only his perception of what he thought happened. Number two, the IR photo that you have, does it have a date? Does it show when it was actually flown?
It is in the Oprah file.
Right, but does it have a date to show when it was actually shown? That's the question I'm asking.
So I don't believe that the state archived it that way.
Okay.
We know that it was done. We know that it was done prior to 69 or 60, May 10th of 67, because they filled it in after that.
Okay, just to let you know, Mr. Bay, I'm not trying to be confrontational with you. I have no side in this. I'm trying to get at the facts. I know you have your opinion. We need to get at facts in order to make our decision. Okay.
Right. So if you go to,
feel like we're attacking you.
So did you guys look at? I'm sorry, I just get strong-headed, and it's not a personal attack on you, Joe, or if I can call you Joe. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I just went through. They sent me like 237 pages. I cataloged it all and went through it. And if you go to, I don't know whether you had access to that, because I would have thought Mr. Bierce may have given that to you. But if you go to page 193 of the Oprah file, right, there's 3 photos that are of Beach Creek. And it says adjacent tidal marsh. And those were done prior to the development being built. If you look at my slides, I didn't include that because the one on Beach Creek, which is mine, almost nobody else would have recognized what it was, because I didn't understand what it was until after I talked to Mr. Weissman, and I'm like, what is this? And then I realized, well, the one that I showed you, right, which is much clearer, shows you what you can see with an IR photo. And so I went back and I looked at the one on Beach Creek, and I have looked at the tributary on my property about, hundreds of hours, because I've spent at least 1,000 hours preparing this presentation. Right. And when I did that, I finally looked at it and it said Beach Creek. And I'm like, well, there's a stream on my property. I can see it, and I have a PowerPoint. If you want, I can send it to you. It's an animation, because you won't see it unless you really look hard. And then I have an overlay animation that shows you where it is.
I understand what you're saying, but I think maybe you're not understand some of the limitations that we have as a council in order to make these decisions. there, as far as this document, the grant document, which is the controlling document, okay, regardless of all the other things that went on, all the extrinsic evidence that you're presenting, the intrinsic evidence that matters most when it comes to property descriptions and property conveyances is the document itself. And if Mr. Weissman was so particular, then he would have made sure that this document was created in a way that would have truly and specifically represented what was going on. Instead, I've reviewed this document and I find a bunch of issues with it, especially with the fact that the Ocean City Homes was supposed to go and convey deeds to each and every property that it had already sold, conveying this interest, which they did not do.
They did.
What?
They did do deeds.
Did you provide us with a copy of the deed?
I did not send them to you. I can. I didn't think that they were that
That's
relevant.
really important. That's really important because because otherwise the document says that this document is void. So if you have a copy of a deed that you got from Ocean City Homes, that's really important.
It's a deed that the state wrote. So the state would not sign the grant until the state, actually, the state wrote it because it's on state letterhead. Well, state paper.
No, I'm not looking for a letter. I'm looking for a deed.
It's a deed.
A deed from, okay, then you need to send a copy of that.
Oh, here, let me do this. I'll do something that's probably the easiest thing for us to do. So it's going to take a minute or two, but I'm going to upload the Oprah file.
Oh, my.
Okay, we don't have the time for
I
that.
don't think we have the time for that.
Yeah.
It's easy because I can put it on Google Drive and you can just look at it.
But we're not going to go through 193 pages.
I can tell you which page to go to. I can tell you which page, or I can send you the individual pages. What would you like to see?
I think at this point in time, we have such an abundance of information that we all just need to have a little bit more time to review it before we can move this conversation forward.
Okay.
What do other council members think? Are they?
Well, my question is, where does this, has the staff hasn't even reviewed this yet, has it?
Well,
So,
We've reviewed the information that's been provided, and the Bureau's position is that the grant did not convey the rights to Mr. Bade's property, and therefore, if he is looking to clear title to his property, he would not be eligible for a confirmatory grant. It would have to be a grant for the whatever the appropriate compensation is determined to be. And again, as noted, we are at a stage in his application that if we were to move forward with that, he would be the estimated cost of the grant with the 75% discount is above the $10,000 minimum, so he would be required to get an appraisal at this point. And Mr. Bade wanted this opportunity to make his case that he would not have to go through that process, but that's where we are. The Bureau is of the position that the grant did not convey title to the title stream that impacts his property that was not depicted nor conveyed in the grant issued to Ocean City Homes.
okay.
Randy, Mr. Gravis has brought up the fact that this would indeed set a precedent if we were to say that all of the all titled lands were conveyed through this grant. But it's my recollection that there are a lot of instances where we see this exact same thing, where there was a grant issued and the conveyances were mapped, but there are other claimed areas on the property that have to be cleared. Is that, I mean, it's not going to be just setting a precedent in this case. There's many other cases where
Potentially it could be, but each individual grant document is an independent deed document unto itself. So we'd have to look at the circumstances of that particular case. I can say though that If we could maybe to answer this question, go back up to one of the earlier slides that Mr. Bade provided with the blue and red color coding of the in this particular development for Ocean City Homes, the council has issued other decisions in this area where the interpretation has been, you could see there's the red shaded area at the top. That's one of the former tidal streams that was referenced in the specific grant document, and then the kind of Y-shaped red area below that. The position has been, it was the intent of that grant to convey those streams. The resulting claims mapping, it mapped streams in the similar location and configuration, but maybe not in the same exact footprint, because again, by the time this grant was being issued, that area was already developed and those areas were already filled. And so the council at the time was relying on the mapping information that was provided by the applicant. So we're going back to that original survey reference that was done by John Walker. So the interpretation was that it was the intent of the grant to convey those particular streams. And again, the stream that impacts Mr. Bay's property is not one of those streams. So in that sense, yes, we would be setting precedents for this development if we were, and would be contrary to prior actions that the council has taken for other properties within this development affected by this grant.
Christina, is it possible that you could enlarge the area on this screen where it says my property within the oval? Could you enlarge that a little bit for us?
Let me give it a try. I might have to exit the screen share though. So
What
just
you're going to find is that there's in excess of 20 properties that are affected by this particular stream, and we've already issued multiple grants along this stream for other people. So the state has granted property and collected funds from many people. You see all the little circles, the little 19, 20, 21, 18, all those numbers. Those are all grants that the council has issued to other people on this very same exact stream. So if we say that this stream didn't really exist or was included in the former grant, then all those people paid for nothing. On the other hand, if we hold that the stream did exist and it wasn't covered under the grant, then we have multiple people who are still going to have to get a grant. So this is a big decision. This is not just delegated to Mr. Bade. This is not just about his property. This is about a policy that we would be adopting regarding this particular development and this particular stream.
Joe, I guess the one thing that Randy mentions that, what the council's position has been in the past, I'm not sure that evidence of this nature has ever been presented to a previous council. So understand that, under decisions that have been made in the past don't necessarily define what we have to do going forward. So I think we have to look at this in an open mind and make that decision whether we agree with him or not.
And my mind is as wide open as possible, Phil. And I am interested in all the information. That's why I asked him to send me that additional information. But we have to look at this in its totality. Okay?
All right. Maybe
so
this is not something that we can decide today. Perhaps we're going to have to confirm at another date, and then get some additional information out. Maybe each of us as council members can send in their questions, and then we can get those that material as we go forward. Would that be okay with you, Mr. Bain?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to go through a few more slides because I think they're kind of pertinent, and then it would still behoove you to, if you need more time, that's okay. I do want to point out the legal perspective because I'm not sure that everybody's on the same page with that. So if we can go back to where we were, if I can.
Mary Pat, And Joe, I have to drop off at noon. I've got another meeting at noon
And
that
so
I'm
do-
chairing.
And I have to go to a deposition, so I really think we need to come back and a lot more time for this.
I think so, and I think that the Oprah file should all be given to us so we have an opportunity to review that as well in conjunction with Mr. Bade's presentation and take up this matter at another time.
Excuse me, could I ask a question?
I agree.
Before you do that, Madam Chairman, perhaps we could handle this case first rather than last the next time we meet.
Yes, that would probably be good as long as there are not a lot of other pressing matters, but we could talk about that.
So if I could just go through like 3 more slides, I'd really appreciate it. I'll try to be quick. And
Mr.
that-
Bain, the problem is you're going to lose. We will not have a majority of members any longer.
That's okay. We can come back and I can do it again next time, but I'd just like, for those who can hang on, if you can give me like 3 more minutes, I'd appreciate it.
No, I think that we need to have the full council here to hear this, and I move that we table this matter until the next meeting.
Okay, do I have a second for that? To table it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All in favor of tabling this matter? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Could I
Okay.
ask a question? I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Sure.
My name's Tom Trainer. I'm on as a guest.
Yes.
I have a home in Ocean City Homes also. I'd first like to thank Mr. Baird, but I'm in the red area. So is my next move to request a confirmatory grant or to request a statement of no interest?
You would be able to qualify for a confirmatory grant. If I understand you correctly, you're saying you're in an area shown in red on that slide that was depicted as one of the, so where are you in
The top red triangle.
Okay.
That's my house.
top red triangle? I don't.
Top left red, that right there. Oh, it was just on, nope. up further.
Actually the area in green?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm colorblind. Yes, that area.
Okay. Yeah, well, actually, that is an area that was also included in the grant. So if you are in an area, you can apply for a confirmatory grant, and I believe that you would be likely be eligible for that based on what you are saying.
Okay,
But
that's
you
fine. My next step is to request, fill out the paperwork for a confirmatory grant.
That's correct.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So can I ask a question real quick? What else would you guys like? Would you like me to send you the deeds? I understood you wanted, I sent you the Oprah file, but it's a lot there to go through. I can send you the deeds to the subsequent property owners. And maybe a few more supplementary PowerPoints, would that be good?
Sure,
That would be
I
great.
think you can submit whatever you think would be helpful to us in this matter, Mr. Baird.
Okay, I'll submit another PowerPoint that's sort of an adjunct, right? So it's going to give you a little bit more detailed information, but the main thing is here. And again, my main fact was it's what people understood they agreed to is what matters, because that's the legal perspective.
Okay.
If you could please, Mr. Bade, please forward that information through me, and I will forward it to the council members.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate you guys all taking the time to listen to this. There's lots and lots of detail, so
Yes, sir. We appreciate your research, Mr. Bade.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Randy, do we have any other business to come before council this afternoon?
No, we don't. The next meeting will be the first Wednesday in June. Again, all meetings will be held remotely in the same manner until further notice. Get your vaccination if you're eligible.
Okay. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move. Di Bernardino.
Second.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning.
Bye now.
See you in a month.